The screen goes dark, and the face that was just there laughing, confessing, looking directly into the lens vanishes without residue. No goodbye, no see you soon. Just the abrupt collapse of a window that held someone's full attention for 40 minutes. The room returns. It's quieter than it should be. Something was consumed during that time. Some volume of interaction, of voice, of eye contact, simulated through a camera's fixed stare. But the body doesn't feel full. The body feels like it just ate a meal made of light. The hunger that remains is specific. It sits in the chest, not the stomach, a low-grade emptiness that's easy to mistake for boredom or fatigue. But it's neither. It's the absence of oxytocin. The brain just spent nearly an hour in the presence of another person tracking micro-expressions, mirroring effect, predicting responses, and at no point did the chemical infrastructure of actual bonding engage. There was no scent, no touch, no shared physical space, no subtler synchrony of breathing rhythms that real proximity provides. The parasympathetic system, the branch that calms and connects, never received its activation signal. The show was social. The neurochemistry was solitary, and the gap between them is what's now humming in the silence. The hunger that remains doesn't have a popular name. It's not classic loneliness, you just heard a voice, just responded with real smiles to real stimuli, even forgot for a few minutes that the person wasn't there. But the attachment system doesn't feed on pixels. Oxytocin, the neuropeptide that signals secure bonding, is released under specific conditions: touch, warmth, proximity, sustained eye contact with another living retina set. None of those conditions were present. The result is a false satiety. The mind believes it's socialized. The body knows it didn't. And the final balance is an isolation deepened by the illusion of having been cured. You spent an hour with someone. You ended emptier than you started, and you can't explain why. The parasocial relationship, a term coined decades ago, long before the screen in your hand, was once a curiosity of television fandom. Now it is the dominant mode of mediated social intake. The brain does not distinguish cleanly between a friend and a figure who performs friendship, looks into the lens, remembers details, addresses you by the collective you that feels individual. The medial prefrontal cortex, which tracks the perceived closeness of others, updates its map the same way for a podcaster you've never met as for a colleague you see weekly. The map does not have a column for real. It has a column for familiar, for predictable, for source of social ward. And the algorithm fills that column as efficiently as any neighbor ever did. The bond feels real because the brain's criteria for real have been met. The body's criteria have not, and the body doesn't get a vote. The architecture understands this gap better than the user does. It has to the gap is where the prophet lives. A truly satisfying social interaction would end. It would reach a natural close, release its neurochemical reward, and let the participants return to the world feeling full. But parasocial intake doesn't release the closure signal. It simulates intimacy without triggering the satiety cascade that real intimacy triggers: oxytocin, endogenous opioids, the parasympathetic calm that follows genuine connection. The user remains in a low-grade hunger state, slightly unsatisfied, primed for the next video, the next story, the next live stream. The platform does not need to trap anyone. It only needs to offer food that doesn't nourish, and the hunger will do the rest. The infinite scroll is not just a design for content. It's a design for a starvation that never names itself. The loneliness that follows a binge is peculiar in its texture. It's not the clean loneliness of a quiet room after a day without speaking. It's an agitated loneliness, a sense of having been surrounded by people who were almost there, who performed presence flawlessly, but left no warmth on the skin. The oxytocin system, unactivated, begins to downregulate over time. The brain adapts to the absence of real bonding signals by reducing receptor density, making subsequent real interactions feel slightly less rewarding, slightly more effortful. The parasocial feed doesn't just fail to fill the need. It slowly raises the threshold for what can fill it, training the social brain to accept simulation as the new normal, and then to prefer it, because simulation asks nothing back. The final isolation is not being alone. It's being alone while convinced you've been socializing all day. The strangest moment is the one after you close the app. The face that was just there, laughing into the camera, confiding something personal, has already moved on to the next frame, the next take, the next 1,000 viewers, and yet a part of you still carries the afterimage of connection. The cerebellum, which handles prediction and timing, was tracking the rhythm of that voice, that smile, and it's still calibrating, still expecting the next beat. But the beat doesn't come. The simulation ends at the exact millisecond you swipe away, and the brain's social prediction engine is left mid-sentence, holding a phantom bond that has no object. You feel this as a faint disorientation, a sense of having been just with someone who is now nowhere. The feeling is not memory. It's a prediction error, and the error is loneliness. The body accumulates a debt it cannot invoice. Over weeks of substituting parasocial intake for the messier, slower, more demanding work of real presence, the social muscle atrophies in subtle ways. The tolerance for silence in a real conversation drops. The expectation of immediate reply, of controlled tone, of performance-quality interaction rises. Real people begin to feel inefficient. They pause. They change the subject. They need things from you that a screen never asks. The oxytocin system, already down-regulated, now finds the friction of actual connection slightly aversive. You catch yourself pulling away from the very thing you're hungry for, because the simulation has made the real taste wrong. The false satiety doesn't just leave you empty. It makes the real food seem spoiled. There's a loneliness that arrives not from absence, but from abundance, from having consumed so much simulated presence that the brain's social accounting is thoroughly confused. The insula, which tracks interoceptive states, registers a body that has been motionless, alone in a room, while the default mode network churned through parasocial narratives as though real company were present. The mismatch produces a kind of existential nausea, the feeling of having been both together and alone simultaneously, a superposition the nervous system was never designed to resolve. You close the app, and the silence is not silence. It's the negative imprint of all the voices that just stopped, a crowded emptiness that hums with the aftertaste of people who were never actually there. The brain, left with contradictory reports, settles on the only synthesis it can. You are lonely, but too full to remember what hunger you're supposed to be feeling. The real damage accumulates in the background, in the small decisions made without thinking. You cancel plans because a live stream is on. You decline a call because typing feels safer. You watch a group conversation in a comment section and feel vaguely involved, though no one said your name. The brain's social motivation system, the ventral striatum, the orbitofrontal cortex, begins to recalibrate around the lower effort, lower risk rewards of parasocial intake. Real interaction involves unpredictability, rejection risk, the exhausting negotiation of mutual attention. A screen offers social reward with no such tax. The brain, efficient and hedonically pragmatic, learns to prefer the simulation, not because it's better, because it's easier to digest, and the hunger doesn't hurt enough to justify the work of a real meal. The atrophy, by the time it's visible, is already a lifestyle. And yet the feed never withholds the promise. There's always another face, another confession, another camera aimed at a life that looks slightly more luminous than yours. The architecture depends on this, not on keeping you satisfied, but on keeping you near the edge of satisfaction. A truly filling social experience would release you. The parasocial economy needs you hungry, scrolling, searching for the next voice that will almost reach you. Some creators understand this intuitively. Platforms understand it explicitly. The pause before a reply, the direct address, the "I love you guys" at the end of a video, these are not just performances of care. They are release valves, calibrated to produce just enough oxytocin, anticipation to keep the bond alive without ever triggering the full cascade. You are not being fed. You are being seasoned for your own continued consumption. The screen cools against your palm. The last face is faded. The room is still yours, unchanged, and the quiet that fills it has a texture that almost feels accusing. Somewhere in the chest, a small hollow persists, not pain exactly, but a kind of echo, as if a bell rang for someone who never arrived. The brain will remember the parasocial hour as social time, and tomorrow it will ask for more. The body, wiser and more honest, will register the continued absence of touch, of scent, of shared breath. The distance between these two knowledges is the space where modern loneliness lives. The transmission ends here. The false satiety, of course, does not.